Then, all right. And then I'm going to go ahead and start letting people in, and then probably I'll let you know, give you a cue as to when we can start.
And once we go, I'm going to turn my picture and sound up too, so I don't, otherwise I can't help kibitzing. I'm bad at it, so it's better if I just shut up. Apologize for the messy desk. This is my actual work desk. So the pile of books behind it and the stuff on the right side I'm working on. You can't see all the mess, thankfully.
That's all good. Mess is fine.
Yeah, people have pristine desks, I think, worry me, some about clean desk, messy mind or something. We kept checking how many books you've got out now, Delilah. It's got to be, God, like 20 or something?
I mean, I think it's like 16, but then I spent a whole year and a half basically doing nothing but comics. So once you tack those on, it bumps up a little
Yeah,
bit.
I read Sparrowhawk and I like that. I just discovered Wellington. I'll have to try and either have to buy a copy or something. But and I think I missed the first one you did. I might have to go back and look.
Yeah, Lady Castle, and then Sparrowhawk, and then Star Pig. Basically, I just take two really weird words and shove them together, and those are my creator-owned comics.
And see what happens.
Shouldn't say it. I'll start thinking of some really bad combination of words. Get me in trouble.
You filled a butthole. That's what we're doing next.
Best seller.
Well, Sean McGuire talked about one of the last things we held public. He talked about these fish, and I said, I'll go and Google this word, and she's like, no. I'll let you figure out what word it was. I don't want to even say it in case it's in the recording.
All right, Dwayne, why don't we go ahead and get the intro started, and we'll get things going.
Hey, hello, folks. My name's Dwayne, science fiction fantasy buyer here for the University Bookstore up in Seattle. I'm really happy today. Although we can't have him here in person, we're hosting Chuck Wendig for his new, let me pull the copy of there, this little skinny book, The Book of Accidents. I don't know if that shows up that well. It's you want to read a creepy book that'll keep you up at night, this is the one. It is, as usual, full of all kinds of twists, and I consider Chuck pretty irrepressible, and he's written more books than I care to go into. There was the Marion Black 3 or 4 book series. There was
6 books, yeah.
6 books. God, I lost track. There's the Star Wars Aftermath book and all kinds of other stuff he's written over the years. I won't even go into that where he's in conversation with Delilah S. Dawson here, who I have personally a soft spot for the Tales of Pell. I mean, come on, a book called Killed the Farm Boy. What can be wrong with that? She's written a couple of Star Wars books of her own. She's doing some graphic stuff. Sparrowhawk last year, I think, and Star Pig this year, and just got in Wellington. And her new book coming out in October, I believe, is called Mine.
It's out actually August 10th.
August 10th. Even that close. Okay, then I'll have to go look at that. Anyway, I'm going to get out of the way and let them romp. Take it away, folks.
All right. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us. Hey, Chuck.
Hi, buddy. How are you?
I mean, I'm about the same as when we talked at 2:00 today.
All right, so now I just changed, but that's fine.
But I put on makeup.
I put on like a different shirt. It's fine. It's all good.
But I've been dying to ask you since 2:00, and I bet people want to know too. Please explain to us the pickaxe on your sofa.
Hello, everybody. It's just a thing I carry around. I tootle around the yard with a pickaxe sometimes in case neighbors get unruly. No, it's a thing in the book, and I have a pickaxe because my family were coal miners on the one side, and so it's just one of those.
So it's not like a prop. It's like a straight up legit pickaxe.
That's a straight up legit pickaxe.
Coal.
Yeah, like I was tempted. Like I was trying to think of like how could I embed it in one of my books for promo, and I was like, first of all, I would ruin a book, maybe an arc, but then I was like, I don't think I have the gumption to really like just really get it in the book. I didn't think I could manage that, sadly.
Oh, that's kind of amazing though.
It would be, right? If I could get like blood coming out of it, or if I could do it on a rock.
Well, okay, so all you've got to do is get like an X-Acto knife and cut into the. Okay, we don't have to go into our craft projects. People probably don't need.
Yeah, but look for it, everybody. Craft project. There could be a craft project coming.
How to put a pickaxe in a book.
How to put a pickaxe in your book.
Okay, so I love Book of Accidents. I have mine up over here.
Thank you.
Because there's a vast amount of space behind me, but I loved it. I read it super fast. And what I really wanted to ask you, having read it, it really, and I know I've seen it in the reviews as well, it really harkened back to some of the real formative Stephen King books for me. What was the first horror book that really like grabbed you and, settled into your brain like a crab demon?
Yeah, the first horror book was, the one that first grabbed me was the first one I read. I kind of grew up doing mostly just fantasy and science fiction. And horror for me was this thing that was like scary in its idea. I wasn't even scared of like the individual horror stories so much as I was scared of the sheer idea of there being horror fiction. Because like my sister told me, she's like, oh, I went to see Exorcist and people were dying in the theater. It was so scary. And I was like, well, I'm out. I'm not doing any of that shit. That's terrible. Don't watch Exorcist. Don't watch any horror movies. Horror is bad. So this very same sister, like I was reading, Lloyd Alexander books. I was reading Hitchhiker's Guide. And then she one day, I don't know if I was like 11 or 12 years old, she pressed Robert McCammon's Swan Song into my hands, which is like 980 pages of nuclear apocalypse. And it just did things to my brain. And that was like, then I read all the McCammon I could find. And it was then into like Kuntz and Stephen King and Poppy Bright. And then just sort of eventually Barker for the really weird stuff. And it just kind of unspooled from there into the horror stuff. How about you? What was your first, were you a big horror reader as a kid, or was it to take you a while?
Yeah, I saw my mom reading this really good book on vacation. I was like, what is that? And she was like, it's Pet Sematary and you can't read it. So as soon as she put it back on the library shelf, I was like,
mine. Yeah.
And that's why I messed up, because I was like 10.
Yeah, Pet Sematary is a messed up book. That is not
it had a Books of Accidents feel too. Like it has that kind of here and there and back and forth, and you were warned. And
I can see it. I can see
thought it was very masterly of you.
Thank you.
I want to know more about how this book came to be. Like, I feel like book ideas, usually I get like one little idea seed and then other things kind of glom on it, like a, Katamari Dynasty. Like, how did this one start?
That's tough, because like when I was like the real basic answer is I lived in a haunted house growing up. So I've always wanted to write a haunted house book.
So was this your house basically?
What's that? No, it's different. It's a very different house. Our house was over 200 years old. And like in this area, the sort of running joke is like, Washington slept here. Like he did not sleep in any of these houses, but everyone tells you their really old house, George Washington slept here. So, cause it was only like right over there that he crossed Washington Crossing and all that whole thing. So, but it was an old house. And though it was sort of, like all the stone exterior was eventually, pasted over with ugly siding, and the inside stone interior was pasted over with bad 70s paneling, it was still a very old house of decor. So growing up in a haunted house made me want to, tell one of the stories. But then it was like, when I discovered our house was haunted, or I should say years into discovering our house was haunted, I one day wanted to talk to my dad about it. And he was like, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. Like, kind of like, he was like tough guy exterior, John Wayne guy. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that sucks. Right, it's just me then. Fine, okay, whatever. But then like years later, when he had died, I talked to my mom and she was like, oh, your dad totally thought this house was haunted. Like even before they got married, like he had things happen. Like he and my grandmother heard the mirror in the bathroom breaking every night for like 30 days. And they would like 2 o'clock in the morning, they would wake up, think this had happened, find each other like in the hallway going to this bathroom. And it was like, nothing was broken. It was fine. But so I was like, that sucks. Like your tough guy exterior didn't allow us to connect on this thing that we were both actually experiencing and couldn't really talk about it. And it's sort of one of the core things of like horror fiction, is like people who like experience stuff but don't want to talk about it because it's too weird. And then I like this idea of like the tough guy exterior and all that generational trauma, because his dad was a tough cookie, aka a terrible abusive person. And all that stuff builds up, and like I was like ghosts, but then like you're haunted by more than ghosts, and you can't talk about the ghosts because you're too haunted by the non-ghost stuff. And I was like, there it is. And then it took me like 20 years to figure out how to write the story.
So what happened in the house you grew up? Like, what were your big hauntings there?
It was mostly little stuff and background noise and constant. Electronics were always, TVs were coming on. Like boombox would kick on loud top volume late at night. My VCR would, if it had a tape in it, it would eject it. Sometimes it would ruin it or rewind it. Because my parents were cruel people, they made me sleep in the attic, which on the one hand was really nice because it was a big broad space, but it was the attic. So above my head, you had like squirrels and rats. And then on the steps going up, every night I would hear footsteps going up and down the steps. So it was just like, you sort of got used to it. Like it was almost comforting in like a weird way. You're like, if I didn't hear it, it would almost feel more upsetting. Like, why don't I hear it now?
It didn't feel like a malevolent ghost. Like it didn't do bad things.
No, there was never anything bad. There were a few things that felt malevolent, weird presence type stuff. And it's hard to know if that's real or if any of it's really real, or if it was something that was kind of left to the imagination. But the one sort of thing that, for lack of a better term, convinced me it was all real, outside of the fact that a lot of the things I experienced were thankfully with other people. So with friends or like my cousin, my family, they would hear things and see things the same time I would. So, but the one thing was my cousin and I went up to the attic and took out a Ouija board, which always such a great idea. And we got a name on the Ouija board, and it was Michael Thomas. And so years later, actually, it was that thing that I talked about with my dad when I went to talk to him about the ghosts. I actually initially didn't start to talk to him about ghosts. I was talking to him about our property because I had thought it was always in the family. Like it was one of those, the Wendig family has always owned this property, rah, rah, rah. And it turns out we didn't. It was initially, we had this massive property, but my grandfather had procured it from someone, and he had procured it from the Thomas family before him, and their son had died out in the woods. And I was just like, so that's when I was like, dude, this thing happened, and I think this house is haunted, and I think maybe that kid is haunting this house. And he was like, shut up, that's not true. Like, okay, damn it, we could have connected on that. Now he's probably a ghost somewhere, and I need to find him, I guess, and talk to him. Like, haha, gotcha.
You're gonna break the mirror, and you're gonna go down there. He's just gonna say, "You were wrong."
Exactly. But mine, your middle grade is coming out, and it's also about a haunted house. Are you a believer? Are you not a believer? Are you?
No, I'm a believer. I've had experiences.
Well, you should share. You should talk a little bit about it.
This is based on my neighbor's house in Florida, which was not haunted, but it was not. Every house in Florida is like a squatting, stubbly hobbit. They're just like sunk into the ground so the hurricanes get them. And this house was like wood and weird angles, and we'd get lost. So yeah, it was based on that. But no, I mean, my husband, the house he grew up in Savannah was really haunted. It was terrifying.
Oh no.
So,
yeah.
the first time I stayed with him in college, I ran into his room and I was like, we have to leave now. And he was like, if my mom finds you in my room, she's gonna kill us. And I was like, the ghost is gonna kill us. I'm not scared of your mother.
Ghost worse.
Yes. And like even like her, she keeps bees, and they have like Africanized themselves because of like the rage ghosts in the house. Like you can't go near the bees because they will sting you to death.
Oh my God, they're like bees that have inhabited or taken on a ghost.
So it's Savannah, which is all haunted.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Okay, so I have to ask, I made a drink in honor of your book. I took a really nice picture of it, and it egg white drinks do not last very great.
No, yeah, they go south pretty quick, but they're tasty.
Yeah, so it really is an accident of a cocktail. But I was curious, have you designed a cocktail based on Book of Accidents?
I have not. I probably should, but I don't know what it would be. It would contain whiskey, because whiskey seems to be a part of the book. Mm-hmm. Probably Stranahan's, because also part of the book. But I don't know. I wouldn't know what else to do. I mean, there's it's a very Pennsylvania. So I'm trying to think what would be a Pennsylvania scrapple. I wouldn't want to put scrapple in it. That would be gross. A big hunk of.
You could stir it with the Lovebird chicken finger.
There you go. Lovebird. So good. Yeah, I don't know. Like we're not maple syrup people, but we do have like birch and hickory, shagbark hickory. Sometimes a thing. I don't know. That would require some thought.
Okay, so somebody in the audience who is a cocktail connoisseur has to come up with some Book of Accidents.
Oh, good.
By the way, y'all, if you know, there's a little Q&A button at the bottom, and if you have a question for Chuck, I'm watching that, and we will have like open for questions at 8:15. But you can like dump your question in there and get it out of your head if you'd like to, and we will ask those.
Yeah.
So otherwise, Chuck and I will just start like talking about stuff. Probably.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to deal with whatever we say.
Who could know?
Yeah, too bad you're trapped with us.
So I know you worked on this book for you tried, I think, 2 other times to write it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
What was it that made it work this time? What was the missing piece?
It's like really cliched, but like life. Like I tried writing this book once about 20 years ago and once about 10. The 20-year ago instance, like I finished it and it was a completed book. It was very different, but it contained a few of the sort of same things, like the coal mine and the bullies, and there was other stuff going on in it. It's a terrible book. It's good no one has ever seen that book. And then the other one about 70,000 words in, and then I stopped. And the weird thing was, like, I went back and read them both, or looked at them both. I didn't read them, but the first one I remembered all of it, and I was like, I see where this book, the Book of Accidents, comes from, and I could see the seeds of it. And the 70,000 word one was like, I recognized none of it. Like it literally was like, I'm like, when the artist in the book, Maddie, she fugues out and creates art. And I was like, did I do that when I tried writing the second iteration of this book? Because I remembered literally not a word of it. As to why this one worked, sometimes the book is wrong and sometimes the writer is wrong for the book, and I wasn't the writer for it yet. Like I've moved back to the area in which I live. I'm literally only about 5 minutes from where I grew up. I have a son now, so it's like I have these things, and I'm thinking about a lot of the things that are kind of going on in this book, even though it's different from my life. It sort of kind of has those pieces, and it took me at this point to get to that awareness, and also like just the situation in the world kind of going on. I felt there were also things that made more sense to me now, paying attention to all that stuff, that the book felt like it was time to be written.
Now, did you write like front to back straight through, or was this kind of like a jumpy around piecemeal thing?
I always write front to back because I'm not smart enough to do otherwise. I can't, like, if I do like in the middle, it would unspool just like it wouldn't be good. So I do write front to back, but then this was one of those books that was really made in the edit, and Trisha, the editor, so good. Hey, I'll hail Trisha. It was just one of those things where we knew the things that needed to come out, and it was very much like I always say, it's like rewiring sinew and capillary. It felt like a very delicate job, but an intense job. Like it was like brain surgery. It wasn't just, well, cut off that limb. That limb is dumb. We don't like that limb. Then you lose that, and then we can move on. None of it was like, if I took a lot of adding things and breaking up chapters and moving this piece here and that piece there, and it was just a lot of microsurgeries to make the book kind of work. So it was a strange editing process that and done during the pandemic. So additionally hallucinogenic, I found.
So was the book easy to write or hard to write, like on the scale of all of your books? Like, where did it fall?
Hard. It was hard. Like it wasn't hard in that I was having difficulty putting, words onto paper or page, so to speak. But it just was like, it was hard, maybe emotionally, and then hard to edit and sort of like to see the whole. And again, the value of a good editor can really not be oversold. It's such an important thing to have a great editor sort of help you. Like you're holding the broken flashlight and they're like, let me put batteries in that for you. And now it's like, oh, that's what I was trying to say. You're right. I was trying to say that. So it was really one of those things where I just had to have the lights turned on.
So what was the hardest part of the book for you? Was it the emotional part?
Yeah. So yeah, it was like the emotional part. I was trying to make sure that I wasn't like borrowing too much from like real life, and trying also not to get like, try not to say too much. Like I want the book to say things, but I don't want to be the one to necessarily be saying them. I think it's okay to have close prose and to sort of sometimes get into just a little bit of that authorial voice, but I don't want it to be like, now sit down, children. It's time to talk to you about, like, I don't want to be like, gather around. It's time for Uncle Chucky to tell you some stories. So it was just sort of maintaining that distance from something that I felt very close to, and making sure I wasn't kind of rolling around too much in it.
So what was your favorite part of it?
That's a good question. There's the really messed up stuff. It's my favorite part. I really liked writing. There's a whole scene
Did
where
you like the part in the cave? Is that what you liked?
I did kind of like writing the part in the cave. Yeah, that was really, I wrote that all in like one day. It was like,
okay.
It was like a descent. Like the descent that was happening in the book was happening, I guess, in my brain. I was like, and I was really enjoying it more than I probably should have. And that was one of those sections where it was like the chapters were really short and punchy, and that one was kind of longer and needed some more room, even though I tried to keep the pieces smaller and not too overwhelming. Yeah, that was probably the fun part. It's a horrible fun part. That says not good things about me.
I mean, I think we all know now that writing a book is kind of in the same way that getting pus out of a splinter or vomiting up poison.
Yes, there's a cathartic component. I mean, with mine, did you find anything that was particularly cathartic or purgative in a way?
I mean, there were scenes that, how you, as a writer, you kind of gather things up over the years, where you'd be like, oh, that's a thing I could use one day. And then it kind of goes into either a journal or just like the rattling marble ball of your head, where you're like, oh, I forgot about that. There were a couple things in there where I was like, oh, I can finally use this creepy moment. Where I was like, wonder if they'll let me get away with scaring children this much. And they
I mean, I was like, Like my kid's gonna fight, like, and he's getting into horror right now. That's the fantastic part, and that's exciting. He's like, I'm playing this game called Bendy and the Ink Machine. I'm like, I know, we bought
And
it
I
for
hear you every time there's a jump scare.
Yeah, he's like, it's kind of scary. I'm like, yeah. He's like, and then he starts drawing all the stuff. I'm like, see, this is you gaining power over the fear with the art, and you're certainly. I'm like, this is good. This is.
See, that's one thing I really appreciate about this book. Like, I think we've both kind of talked online and are open about like not having the greatest childhoods.
Yeah.
And being frightened of your dad. And horror was almost kind of comforting because you were like, okay, real life is scary in this way, horror is scary in this fun way.
Yeah.
Where writing a book like this is a fun way to explore.
Yeah, I always say it's like how like old sorcerers would summon demons into a safe summoning circle. I always feel like horror novels are like a place to sort of contextualize and make those demons or the anxieties like fight each other. It's like Thunderdome style. You fight now, anxieties, and I'm going to sit back here and just let that happen.
Was anything in this book based on like a real life incident for you, or was it all kind of?
I don't know that. I mean, some of the haunting stuff just sort of in its vibe, but there was really nothing. I always tried to, anytime I was getting too close to something that felt like real, I would try to step it sideways and be like, what's a kind of an alternate take on that? Like all the folklore in the book is based on folklore that is around here, but is 1 or 2 degrees off. Like,
okay, like what are some of your local folklores that were in there? Is it
it
the
references, what's that?
The Felsenmere?
Well, yeah, I was just there the other day. I took pictures of the book at our Felsenmere nearby. It's called Ringing Rocks, not Ramble Rocks. And if you go and you strike the right rocks, they make a bell-like ring. It's actually pretty weird, and it's hard to do, and I'd never been able to do it. And then when I was there's just like a kid tottering around, like hitting every damn rock he can, and one nailed it. It was like gong. I was like, oh my god, that kid just did it, like right here in front of me. So that Percy that has the conductor, he leaned out of his train, and in this case, a little book, but in the case, my internet is unstable. Still.
Apparently, the local area is mad at you for revealing a secret.
So he leans out of the train, and another train takes his head off. It is. It's very sad. It's very. Yeah. Did everyone get me? Oh no. Oh no. Now you're frozen.
I'm frozen?
I don't know if people can hear me.
You're frozen.
What? Yeah, you were frozen. I can't.
Oh man, are we?
We're all frozen.
Southern internet battle of frozen times.
I don't know. So let me see. Why? Huh.
Okay.
Are you there? Are you okay?
Yeah, it says
it's mostly Chuck. It's just me. I don't know why. It's just...
Ghosts are mad, Chuck. I could get like a sock puppet that could be Chuck. Get like a sock puppet with like an apple hat.
All right. You seem back on. You seem good. You're not frozen. Am I not frozen?
No, I'm drinking. I'm drinking my accident.
The Zoom is haunted. The Zoom is haunted. You're drinking. Yeah, you're drinking your accent. See, that's we're having accents. Yeah, I don't know where I landed, but a dude lost his head in a train tunnel. So that was a part of the folklore of the book too. There's weird stuff around. There's like the albino cannibals of Haycock Mountain.
Oh, I haven't heard about that.
Uh-oh.
I bet you talked to Aaron.
Oh
about
yeah,
that,
there's like. I did. Yeah, there's a place if you go to Haycock Mountain. There's like a greenhouse and a weird house on the hill, and there's a bunch of albino cannibals who live in it, and they will stalk you in the trees and drop down out of trees like monkeys. I don't know, and they will steal you.
Like I don't know, my dude.
Yeah, I'm like, none of this is real, but it's evocative.
So where did Eli come from? Without revealing too much, was that based on something out of, scripture or fiction, or were you just like, what would be freaky?
Yeah, mostly, what would be freaky. There's in the Coen Brothers movies, there is frequently a character who simply reeks of evil. And sometimes I like to play that sort of thing. I really wanted to do that here and make this person who you seem like you can trust, and then obviously as a boy gets lost in a mine, it gets worse and worse and worse. And it's like one of those things where he's even the type of character you could use again in other sort of books to
There's some Randall Flagness to that.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, he slightly terrified me there.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's not good. I don't know why, but it's just sometimes creepy is good, especially with a horror book.
Is there any chance of like a sequel or anything else in this world?
It's not impossible, just because I do feel like it ends in a way that it allows for more things, but I don't intend for it. It does. I want it to be a standalone, and for this story, if another thing happened, it would be different, it'd be way ahead, and it would be not really connected to this story. Maybe one of the characters, without spoiling too much, I might connect to, but otherwise probably not. It was sort of with Wanderers. I only wanted to do a sequel there if I thought of one, and I don't have one for this book yet. And if honestly, there were sort of reader interest. Like, I don't, to speak frankly, like, people aren't buying the book. I'm not like, time to write a sequel to that book no one read. Woo, we can do that. That's just throwing my time into a hole. But enough people did read Wanderers, and I, on the book tour for Wanderers, I had like a huge idea for the sequel, literally on the plane ride out. So that told me it was time to write that sequel. So maybe Book of Accidents will have some similar epiphany. Who knows?
Have you sold movie rights to this one yet?
No, we haven't. No, I've had a few people sniff around, but there is no. So Hollywood's out there.
Sell all the movie rights. I just assume they're just like.
Nope, they do not. Yeah.
So I know you've talked to Aaron, and you talked to Stephen Graham Jones, and you talked to, was it Paul Tremblay?
Paul Tremblay, yeah.
So I'm guessing you got the local lore historical take, the horror take, and the very erudite horror take.
Yeah.
Is there any question or aspect of this book you haven't gotten to talk about yet that you're like, why doesn't anybody ask me about the thing?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. No, I don't think so. Like, it's just, I don't even know what people should ask about the book. It's such a hard book to even talk about. It's big and it's weird and it's crunchy and it's feely. It's touchy-feely, and no one's really asked me about touchy-feely stuff. I will say that no one has actually delved too much into the hope-ish, optimistic. Like, for as much as this is very much a deep horror book, and it's like not friendly or nice, and it's meant to be like scary and nasty. I did concertedly want to make it a hopeful book at the same time, and funny, and sort of have a little heart in it, and not just be a dirge, like Cormac McCarthy's The Road or something.
No, I mean, it was almost revelatory seeing a horror book in which the husband and wife were like a team. Instead of
almost any fiction. It's
run apart by like a wedge, where it was just like, no, I'm down, we're doing this.
Yeah. There's literally a point in the book when I was like, I don't want this to become one of those stories where everyone keeps secrets so long and that's the thing that hurts them. I was like, I want them to tell the truth to each other and to be a team. And that doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but I think and in some ways it actually ups the stakes more, because they're not, if they're already broken apart, you're like, well, I mean, okay, who cares what happens to them? Or you feel like that relationship is already broken. So if one of them dies, whatever, who cares? And we can fridge the wife. It's totally fine. And I don't want that. I want you to care about this family unit, and I want them to be united in some way, even if they're fighting to some degree.
Hope you froze up, bud.
Keeping sticks. Oh no, damn it. Look fine.
Okay, there you go.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
No? All right. Back? I don't know why.
Back.
I blame it's another. Yeah. I see my internet can now connect to someone's office jet printer, so maybe I'll do that and see if that will help.
Oh, and then they get to write a story about a haunted office jet printer.
Yeah.
So
I can send them messages. That'll be fun.
Hubert, we're getting the facts.
It's a good. I wish I could do that.
What was the inspiration for Maddie? She seemed like a, compared to the kinds of books that one usually reads in horror. She seemed, not only dialed in and a fighter, and tenacious, but she just really stood out as an unusual, wife in a horror book where the man is the main character.
Yeah, I first I wanted an artist character, and I wanted her to be not like a touchy-feely artist. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted her to be sort of physical, work with her hands, and to some degrees, that's my wife. Like if something breaks in our house, I do not fix it. She fixes it. She's very good at it. So, inspirationally, there's that. And then I never, the way I ended the Miriam Black series, I never really got to tell the story of her as a mom. And I wanted to kind of do that. Like Maddie is not Miriam, but there are aspects of that sort of character that live in Maddie.
There's the cussing.
There's the cussing, and that is literally like, that's my nod to Miriam in many ways, for that. So, and I don't know, like kind of growing up, like I like the sort of like get shit done moms who aren't just like, well, the husband does these things, and I just, I like that both as character and as sort of real people. So yeah, that's where Maddie comes from.
And what about like, so Nate? Tell us about Nate too. Where'd he come from?
Yeah, Nate's I don't know. Nate's like one of those guys where he's not me, but I wanted to sort of understand. He's not my dad either, but at the same time, I really wanted to understand like how can, like my relationship with my dad was not good in any way. But then hearing the relationship that my father had with his dad, and I'm like, well, our relationship was peaches and cream compared to what he and his dad experienced. I mean, we're talking like brutal fist fights and like, straight up like lashings, and like, he grew up on a farm, and they never talked about abuse. It was just sort of like, that's how it was on the farm. I was like, well, it sounds like hell. Oh my God, I don't want to live that way. So, my dad was nowhere close to any of that. Wasn't good for me. And I don't mean to, look past it, but I was fascinated with like the idea of like what you carry down and what you keep away. Cause I know he was very angry with his dad, but he was also very sad at having lost him. He would go to the grave once a year at Christmas and cry. And it was weird to see that because he, every other day of the year, like talked pretty viciously about the man. And it's sort of one of those fascinating dynamics to me. Like, what did he carry down? And was he ever conscious of ever being like, I don't want to be that way? Because you could feel that he could have been, and sometimes even was, and the anger could be off the charts. You could be like, oh, okay, I see the way the stories were of my grandfather. Like this looks and sounds kind of like my grandfather. So it was just that idea of like that Nate forms in his head, like a seawall of like, I'm going to build this thing that keeps all of this stuff inside me, which is not healthy either, but that's how he deals with it. And I just wanted to sort of explore that. It's sort of an imaginary spelunking trip into, parental fatherly weirdness.
Okay, and so now Oliver, where'd he come from?
Well, Oliver, I don't know. He's again, he wasn't me, but I was a really sensitive kid. Over the story, my dad would always say you were oversensitive, like you took everything sort of on the chin, like everything, you were like a raw nerve. And my son's not that way, which is fascinating that he's not that way. He's a way spunkier, tougher, like he'll eat anything and do anything. And I always tell the story of like when we were on Halloween, he was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. And we went to one of those houses that was one of those like legit scary houses. Like one of those people were like, we're going to mess with some kids with this house. Like the witch on the porch was not like I've got the big hat and the cauldron. It was like Blair Witch type stuff, like creepy music, dark, flickering lights, like the kind of place where like you're going to die in this house. So we didn't think he'd want to go up and get candy from that house. And he just like is like strutting up, like he doesn't give a shit about walking up to this house. And when he came back down, he went up, got his candy, and came back down like, so what? And I was like, I asked him like, well, that was brave. You were just like, and he was like, yeah, poop yourselves, witches and skeletons. That was his like attitude. That's literally what he said. Poop yourselves, witches and skeletons. Like that's the greatest attitude to have about the monsters that you see in front of you, is just poop yourself. Like I can just shit your pants monsters. So
like, Michael's should do a line on that. Like I want a bumper sticker and like a Yeti mug.
Yeah, exactly. And hat. Yeah. So he's not me. And when I was a kid, and I was definitely the more like, oh, that porch is scary, I'm not going out there. And I kind of dialed. And then I also think too about like kids today with just the anxieties that they're pressed under with again, school shootings or climate change or all the sort of the pressures of the world, kind of pushing down on their shoulders. And I wanted to talk about a kid who, it's not that he's crushed by it, it's that he's crushed by feeling what everyone feels about it. It's not that he himself automatically feels upset or anxious about these things, it's that he can detect the anxiety and the pain in everyone else, and that's what pins him to the floor. And I wanted to sort of see what that was like, and then having these three work together as a familial unit was the most fun and weird playground.
It was so refreshing.
Oh, thank
It
you.
was so refreshing
Thank you.
that they were all in it together and willing to fight for each other and for their relationships in the world that they've made. It was very
Thank you.
unusual
Yeah.
for a horror book, I think. Because
I was trying to do that.
to
Yeah.
isolate the people and then pick them off.
Right.
And they just completely resisted that here.
That's the hope. That was the plan.
I'm really hoping that someone like carves some owls for you as fan art. Like I want to see the owls.
Oh, that would be good. I'll take that. We have a number in the house already. Like owls are a sort of a protective thing. And actually, that was the thing. I when I was a kid, I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of like serial killers. I don't know why I even knew about serial killers as a kid, like a little kid. Like serial killers are a thing. Who told me that?
The news.
Yeah, I was afraid of like nuclear bombs and stuff. But there was an owl every year. There was a screech owl that would hang out. No, sorry, not a screech owl. The pointed horned owl, who would sit in a tree knot across from my bedroom window. And I would feel safer with the owl. And I don't know why. Like the owl wasn't going to do shit for me. He wasn't going to like, I'll take care of it. Serial killer comes in, I'm going for the eyes. But like, maybe he will. I'll pretend he will.
Oh, I love that. So I know you've got
Freezing
this
again.
one out, which is one flavor of book, and then Dustin Grimm is out in October. When is Dustin Grimm out?
I got what in August?
Dustin Grimm, your next book, Dustin Grimm.
Oh, Dustin Grimm is out in October.
October, okay.
Dustin, sorry, I was freezing. Yeah, my middle grade is out in October. Yeah.
So do you want to tell
yours is out in
people,
August?
Yeah, mine's same as mine.
I hope we do an event at some point.
We're going to. It's going to happen. We're going to work it out. But for people here now,
yeah, Dustin. Good. Let's do it.
Okay, good. So for people who are here now,
if anyone can hear me, I don't even know. We're all
I can hear you.
Stuttering.
Froze, but you're back. I can hear your voice.
Oh, good. Good.
I'm just trying to get you to tell.
Yeah. What is Dustin Grimm about?
Yeah, because like if they like this, then they can get Dustin Grimm for their children, and it's entirely different and much less cursing.
That's true. That's good. That's good. Much less cursing, though still a little, maybe like some almost cursing. It's about a young girl who inherits a funeral home for monsters and must share that inheritance with a brother she's never met. Humor and horror in equal measure.
What was the story seed for that one? How'd you come up with it?
I don't know. That's one of those ones I don't know. I just thought one day I thought funeral home for monsters. I thought that was interesting. That's a weird idea. Why would they even need that? And there's literally a funeral home up in a place called Emmaus, Pennsylvania. And the guy's name, I think, who runs it is like Dustin Grimm. And I was like, oh man, that's weird. Like that guy's
You stole a dude's name.
I did, but not really because it's broken up. It's okay. It's okay if it's broken up. And I was like, that's fascinating. He's definitely like a vampire or something. That guy. That's not a real name. I just sort of kept thinking about it more and more. Like, what is a funeral home for monsters like? Why does it exist? And then sort of thinking where that story belongs. And I wanted to do a middle grade that my son could read. So that was where that came from.
I love the cover to that book so much.
Yes, Jensine Eckwald did gorgeous art, both for the cover and the interior. There's some very cool
I'm so jealous of the interiors. The ones that I saw in the art were very cool. It's kind of like the author's dream. It's like you get extra art and you're like, what?
Yeah, I get extra art. I don't know, like, I mean, when you do comics, like that's the weird joy of writing comics is like when someone's like, you wrote these words and you're like, I just wrote stupid words, but then like amazing art comes in and you're just like, it made everything so much better. And I feel like it makes the book so much better.
Now, have you read that one to your son yet, or are you kind of like waiting till you have?
He wants the real copy, and he wants to read it. So I was like, done. Okay, that's a fair
That's what
deal.
my husband does too. Like he won't read it until I can put it in his hands. I'll be like, do you want the PDF? And he's like, absolutely not.
Yeah, yep. And Ben didn't even want the ARC, the printed ARC. He's like, nope, I don't want the printed ARC. I want the. He's like, he wants all the art done because the art isn't done in the ARC. He's like, I want everything, and he's excited. And it's weird because he hasn't been excited about anything I've written, not even Star Wars. Like he's excited that you write Star Wars. He has your book,
bless him.
but he wasn't excited that I was. He just excited that I knew you.
The author's kids are never interested in their books ever.
No. So when he was like, yeah, this looks good, Dustin Grimm, I'm in. I'm like, what? Who are you? What happened?
No, I don't think until my Minecraft book did either of my kids really care.
You never know what it is. But my son is also very excited about your Minecraft book. I showed him Mob Squad's cover, and he was like, I want that right now.
His name is in there.
Oh, he's gonna be very happy.
Yay. Okay. So, sorry, I'm just imagining fun children's stuff and how strange our children are because we haven't gotten to see each other and our children in so long.
No, it's been way too long. I'm like hoping that can be reconciled soon because this pandemic is stupid. I don't like it.
It really is stupid, but we get a lot of writing done. So what are you working on now?
I just finished the Wanderers sequel, Wayward, and that's like another 280,000 words of oh God, what have I done? And I just got like an email from my editor Trisha being like, I'm sorry, I haven't looked at it yet. I'm like, I don't think it's been a month. I'm like, really? You take a year. I don't know, it's whatever you need. It's a big book. It's a big book. I don't blame you. It's
how many words is it?
280,000. Yeah.
For reference, dear friends, the average science fiction fantasy book is like 80 to 100,000.
Yeah, I think before Wanderers, the longest.
Fantasies are like 150.
Yeah, I think the longest before that was 125 for me. It was the longest I'd ever written, and then suddenly Wanderers came along, and I was like, ugh. Oh,
so
no.
Are you writing another book now, or are you like in that wonderful kind of chilling period?
Yeah, I'm in the zone. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like I'm floating. I have things
that feeling. I hate it.
Yeah, it's not actually a good feeling. People think it feels good, and I'm like, it doesn't feel right. It feels like I should be, but I'm not ready to be. Yeah.
Well, it's that weird thing where like fields have to lie fallow for a while, but then you're just like, look, that ugly ass field with nothing growing in it.
You do. You're like, grow, stupid field.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you see we're in this together. I'm in the same place.
Yep, we know.
Finish the book, turn it in, and go, oh God, what now?
Yeah. What are you working on now? You're working on a lot. You have like a lot going on.
Everything I'm working on right now is secret.
Secret books, everybody.
My second middle grade horror book, so we've got that.
All right, that's good.
I wrote the dedication today, so I did actual work.
That's work. Writing a dedication is work.
The dedication's harder than writing the whole book.
It really is. You're not wrong about that.
So again, audience friends, ask Chuck questions in the comments. Any question. It doesn't have to be like a super, academic based question about the book for book club.
You can ask away. Comments, questions, prayer requests, death threats. Don't do those. To the internet. Don't do death threats.
No, I'm just thinking of the crab guy. We don't want that. So let's see here. So we've got Book of Accidents, and then your next book out is Wanderers or Wayward.
Yeah. Well, next book out is Dustin Grimm, and then I think Wayward is next. I mean, unless something goes awry.
Do we know what's after Wayward next?
I may have a book about an evil apple. Apple.
This haunted apple orchard?
Yeah. There's like a cult involved at the center of an orchard. And sort of a narcissist cult. It's weird. It's a weird book. It's going to be a strange book.
Well, I think you've said that about like all of your books, basically, up until now.
Yeah. So I don't know why I'm doing these things. Why am I doing this? What is happening?
Because it's working based on the PR I'm seeing for the Book of Accidents. Like people are really enjoying it. Like Shondaland interviewed you. Like,
yeah,
big deal.
It's been cool. Yeah, you just never know what's going to work and what won't. You just sort of I always say that writing is like this weird act of faith. You're just like, I'm going to write this book and hope that someone else is also a freak like me, that they're going to like this thing that I wrote. It's like it's an entreaty against loneliness.
Well, sometimes it also feels like having a baby and then throwing the baby in the air and be like, hope somebody catches it.
Exactly. Hope someone likes this baby. Hope they take it and they like it, and then they talk about it later, and they try to share the baby with other people because I don't want to see it anymore.
Well, that's that whole King Solomon parable. I don't think we're going to go into that.
Yeah. 2 babies. Now you have 2 babies.
Well, you have 2 half babies and a bunch of intestines.
I guess babies are not like crayons. You can't just snap them in half.
You cannot melt them with the Crayola crayon maker to make new exciting.
I made a new baby. I made a double baby. Good time.
Okay, so let's, before we talk any more about turning babies into crayons, you saw it here. We do have some audience questions. So,
Let's hear 'em.
from Andrew Fordham, when you write a really difficult scene, do you find it difficult to turn that portion of your mind off as you walk from the writing shed to the house? How difficult is separation of these things from real family life?
But you take that one first. What do you? I mean, do you?
Well, no, it's your interview. I mean, I
know, but I'm going to think about it. So
Okay,
it's a good question though. You need to answer that too.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess when I'm writing, there are normal scenes and there are hard scenes, and I have done a lot of, I guess, therapy over the years, and my husband's a psychologist and we talk a lot, and I've written my poetry and I've spoken my truth, and I feel kind of like anytime getting it out is just being like, oh, there's still some pus under the splinter, let's get it out again. So like I always feel great afterwards. Like if I write a really big scene and I'm crying and upset afterwards, I'm like, oh man, we really just rinsed out that towel. I feel great now. This is amazing. It's
like, oh, I just worked a knot out of my neck.
Yeah, so I always feel kind of like better afterwards.
Yeah, I'm usually the same way. The only difficulty is if it's a scene that's like plot or story difficult, not difficult emotionally or cathartic or whatever, but like I can't quite figure out if I'm getting that right or what's coming up is right or if my plan is flawed. And so that's the type of thing where once I leave the shed, like my brain does not stop. My wife will be talking to me and she'll be like, why is your phone in the drawer? I'd be like, yeah, because I'm sort of like still in the book. So I'm very
book world.
I'm in book world. Yeah, I live there. And then I'll shower and I'll just be like staring at the wall, like the water raining down. Like, I have thoughts about this book. And then, but then when it hits you, you're just like, yeah, I figured it out. I'm good now. And then I can turn my brain off.
I do have some problems with, maybe you saw it in this book when you have experienced certain kinds of abuse and you write those into books. And it's almost like you're kind of transcribing the scene of what you experienced and merging it kind of in real time with the book characters and their specific situation. Yeah. Where I'll get caught in a loop reading it and rereading it, almost like to make sure I've got it right, and reliving it in almost a lascivious way where, I don't know, it's there are some scenes in The Violence, which is my big book at the next February.
Yeah, that's right. When is it? February?
Yeah, February 1st, which are kind of based on the domestic abuse I experienced as a kid, where I'll get caught up reading it almost like you're reading, the Reader's Digest drama and real life story.
Yeah.
And I have to be like, okay, we've read that scene enough. Thank you. It's fine.
Yeah. No, are you going back over it to sort of make it right for you or for the reader, or like what is your sort of like reiterative reading about?
I think it's like, we write the book, we edit the book, somebody looks at it, we edit again, they look at it, we edit again. I mean, you end up doing at the very least, if you're a major super pro, 3 rereads.
Yeah.
Or, at the very, very, very least.
Nope.
But it's normally more like 4 or 5 with, an edit and first pass pages and copy edits. But these scenes, it's like I'll read it, and at the end, I'll be like, wait, did I get that right? And it's almost like an unhealthy little weird loop.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's like in Brain Candy when you get caught in Funky Town for a while.
Brain Candy.
But there's almost a, you hold on to your trauma. It's a part of you, and seeing it on the page while being cathartic is also. It's almost like looking inside someone else's kitchen. It's something similar happening. It's just like
and that's why I was always, whenever I started to get a little too close to the bone, I'd be like, how can I get close to a different bone? Like I still want to be there. Like I still want it to be like cutting, but maybe not the arm. Maybe what's the leg like right now, and then adjust it accordingly. Because otherwise, I would kind of get into those loops. Like, am I getting this right? Am I doing it right for myself? What's the
And I'll also, like, after I've written kind of a big scene, and I always try to, I'll end the chapter, insert break to the next page, number it, write the first 2 or 3 sentences to get to where I know where I'm starting the next day. And then I'll be like, let's see what's happening on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And it's almost like this cleansing fountain that kind of washes the grit away so you can kind of go back to real life.
Yeah, I'm with you.
The liminal space.
Instagram is especially good for just like,
Pictures.
look at the dog. That's a good piece of broccoli. That looks like a nice broccoli.
Chuck's bees.
Yeah, good bees. Hello, bees.
All right, so here's a good question from Gabriel Fortunato, I think. A simple one. What are the best and worst parts about being an author?
I don't know. The best is, I mean, like honestly, stuff like this and just hanging out with, because there's this idea, like I hear this every once in a while, right? Like I saw Walter Mosley speak at Writers Digest, and he was like, "Don't be friends with writers. I'm friends with all these other people." And I was like, I mean, you should definitely be friends with all kinds of people, but I mean, I'm like, I have to be friends with writers. And some of you and Kevin and Stephen Blackmore, like, see, these are some of like the greatest people. Like I feel like we understand each other's journeys more, and I can't talk to a lot of people about the sort of ups and downs of being a writer, and they wouldn't understand it. I mean, even my wife, God love her, I'll tell her things and she's like, I don't know what this means. Like, is that good? Is that bad? I'm like, all right, okay. I need to talk to Kevin and Delilah about this. So yeah, that's definitely one of the best. And then some of the worst is like, I don't know, publishing is weird, especially right now. You're never quite sure where you're at and if it's good and if it's bad. And so you have to constantly keep reminding yourself, like, the only thing you really control is the book and what's on the page, and you can't, once it's out there, like you said, it's like throwing up a baby and someone else has that baby now, and you kind of have to not worry about that. You have to be like, what baby? I don't know anything about that baby. I've never met that baby before.
I throw away the baby. It's your baby now. Enjoy.
It's your baby now. Enjoy that baby. So that's one of the worst, just because it's just a tough. And then the business itself is always kind of odd. You're like never really sure. Am I saying did I write the right email? Am I, and having a good agent, which we also have the same agent, is essential. Stacia, I know, fields probably a number of our anxieties, maybe daily. And it's been really great to have her sort of be there from, for all of this stuff. How about you, best and worst?
I mean, I'm pretty close to the same. I mean, the best moments are just like when we're at cons with our friends in a group laughing. I feel like I've had a hard time making friends my whole life and finding people like me. And now I found that authors are the people that are like me, but we live all spread out over, the country and the world. So we only get to see each other for these things, but like, there is no feeling like, dragging your suitcase into the hotel, checking in. And as you pass by the hotel bar, hearing people happily say your name and wave to you. Mm-hmm. It's like the 13-year-old me, and it's like, oh my God.
You see the airport. Oh, it's great. It is so good.
Yeah. And then, it's like that we would have just breakfast at the Phoenix Comic-Con hotel looking for secret buttholes and all of their weird art. Like, it's just these random, wonderful moments that we have. So going to the crazy underground doll cemetery speakeasy. Like, we got to go see Solo with like the Star Wars crew. We get to do the coolest stuff.
Yeah. Very fortunate.
And yeah, like the worst is the fact that it's so out of your control. You can write the best book you could possibly write. You can have the best possible team behind it, an amazing cover. You can give it your all. You can be on all your social media. You can do everything right, and still it might not land just because there's an element of luck and timing involved that's always completely out of your control.
Always, yeah.
And yet you still see other people doing better than you, and just, your brain goes, oh, I'm not as good as them. And it's like, it's not necessarily true.
Yeah. And I have to imagine, someone like Stephen King. I mean, we were talking like Dwayne beforehand, and it's like there's, James Patterson more than Stephen King, or obviously, whatever huge author is of a certain time, and they can sell more and make different awards. And there's always someone who's different or got something better or better to you or whatever it is. You just comes a point you just try to like do the best you can for yourself in your world.
I think it's so important you have to love the process. You have to love the moment where it's just you and the laptop alone writing, or you'll never make it.
Yeah. I know there's some
like first drafting is this like, it's like Maddie making her artwork. Like, it's like being in a fugue. It's this manic, you are the fire hose through which the words come. And it's this great time. And yeah, sometimes editing is super painful, but
yeah. It's weird when I meet authors who like don't like they don't like writing. Like I hate writing, and I'm like, you've got to like some part of this. You have to, like, otherwise you just hate yourself. What are you doing? Like, this is the largest part of the job, is like whether it's the writing or redrafting or rewriting or whatever. Like, that's a whole massive formative part of your time. Certainly can't like the publishing process. My God, that's like Sauron's eye. You've got to find something in the writing that you find kin with.
I tell you what else I really hate is taxes. They tax us so hard.
Taxes real bad. Yeah, I formed an LLC to like shave just a little bit off how bad they tax us, but it's still bad.
Still aggressive.
Yeah.
Okay. So this question from Mila, I think it's Mila MD, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong. If Chuck had an apple named after him, what would it taste like? What color would it be? And would his beard agree with his assessment?
If I had an apple named after me, boy, that's a good, who? It would be a russet. I can tell you that right now, because russets are weird apples, and I really like them because they don't, like when I started to investigate apples, like I went to, the way it happened was we have a farmer's market, or had a farmer's market up where we used to live. And there was an orchard there, North Star Orchard. And they had all of these apples where I was like, you're making this shit up, right? Like none of these are apples. Like these are all like, Snow White and Ruby Bellwether and like Golden Russet and Knobby Russet. I'm like, these are all made up. You just made this shit up. These are fake. This is plastic fruit. And so I'm like, well, I'm buying one of each of these because this is insane. I don't know what this is. And they're like, they're heirlooms. And I was like, still don't know what that means. So they're like, well, they're weird varieties that have lived in different parts of the world or this country, and they've been largely forgotten, but we grow them. I was like, well, okay, that's interesting. And it's like literally like 8,000 types of apple. And if you take the seeds of an apple,
And
you put it in
yet
the ground,
they give us Red Delicious.
you give us Red Delicious. That's exactly it. The Judas apple, the liar apple. So
Captain Mealy Face.
oh man, so sad. So sad what they've done. So the russets are like, they're literally russeted. So they have this like funky texture on them, almost like a cardboardy rough paper. And it sort of like goes around, and they're usually sort of a golden brown apple. Sometimes they're really hard skinned. Sometimes they're ugly as hell. Like they can be lumpy, like just this, like a child you tried to throw away. We're talking about throwing away children a lot here, so I'm very sorry about that. My child is still in our house. I have not.
Yeah, don't tell our children we said this.
I'm not throwing him away. So, but they taste fascinating. They have this sweet tart in equal measure, but there's a licoricey sort of anise component, like a fennel type of thing going on there. And sometimes they have just a little bit of pineapple behind them. And so I would be a russet just because they're a funky taste you can't quite get your mouth around. I think, but it needs a name. The golden Wendig, that feels that like the Cornish beardo. Like it's got to have like one of those weird, because some of the names sound like hobbits, like the apple names. So I feel like you've got to pick a good hobbit name for that. I don't know what it would be. I'll think of that for my apple book. How about you? Do you have any strong apple feelings? It's okay if you don't.
Okay, so I've never lived in a place where I could have access to, like artisan bespoke heirloom apples. Georgia and Florida are just not places where. So I mean, I like when I found Sweet Tangos, I was like, ooh,
yeah, Sweet Tangos.
How exciting! So
yeah.
I got into those, and Cosmic Crisp.
Cosmic Crisp is
like
a current favorite. Yeah.
So yeah, those were probably my two favorites. But of course, here in Georgia, like those are only available. They're not available right now. Right now, you can literally have Fuji, Pink Lady, or Honeycrisp, and they're all not great.
Yeah, because they haven't been grown recently. They're old. They've been sitting in storage.
But our nectarines and peaches are off the hook at the moment.
Oh, I imagine. Yeah, and I only recently learned that nectarines are just peaches.
They're naked peaches. So if you have texture issues,
forever I have not eaten them because I thought there was something different.
We have one last question from Mila.
Oh, okay.
From Mila. All right. I've had a really hard time connecting to my writing during the pandemic, and it's been awful. Do you have any tips, any guides? She just got 2 of your writing books, and any tips for getting past that wall?
How about you? Do you have any opinions on that? I mean, because you've been writing during this, you've been doing it.
Oh yeah, no, I wrote big time, but I'm also like I'm super privileged in this time. I've been able to stay home. I kept my kids home and homeschooled them. My husband stayed home. Like we've been super fortunate. It's a lot different. I think if you have to go out there and you have to give yourself some more grace, you don't have that kind of setup in place. But for me, it's been all about self-care. Like if I don't prioritize sleep, and if I don't eat well, and if I don't get some sunshine and exercise, I can't. I just kind of sit in place and kind of ossify and crustify into like a little human blanket. So during the pandemic, the best thing I did was I would put on like a little pedometer app and a podcast. And I just go walk for 5,000 steps, and I would walk circles and circles and circles around my block until I had 5,000 steps. And it was like winding up a watch. And once I'd done it, I was like, oh, I have so many ideas. I know what to write. I know what to write. So like that was a big key for me is just, you know, movement begets movement, not getting emotionally constipated.
There you go. Do not get emotionally constipated. No, that's absolutely right on. Yeah, it was tough to start. I mean, I didn't have any, like when the pandemic started, I didn't have huge deadlines waiting for me. So I was editing this book and Dustin Grimm. And editing worked better for my pandemic brain than writing. I couldn't really do much writing. I would do like a blog post here and there, but it felt weird. I couldn't quite get it out there. And when it came time to write, finally start Wayward, which happened around September, it came slow. It was like I maybe did like a 250 word day, and then like do that for a week, and then 500 words. And I kind of gained momentum. And mostly that was it for me. It was just recognizing that sort of emotionally, it was like you had a broken leg, and it was important that with a broken leg, it is important to move it and to get out a little bit on it, but also not to be like, time to run. Like I'm just gonna zippity doo dah, and I snapped my leg in half. That was what I did to that. So it's that idea of like physical therapy is sort of like, you got to do it a little bit, and you got to do it gingerly, but at the same time, don't not do it, because that's not fixing it either. Like you can't, I mean, obviously there's a point we all have to take a rest and rest our brain. It's not like you have to be go, 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 but I just mean that like, if you want to be writing and you're in a position where you feel like you can't, or you feel like it's difficult, like do the absolute bare minimum. I mean, write a sentence. It just feels a little bit like momentum, and then write a sentence every day for a week. And then if you can do it the next week, write 2 sentences, write a paragraph, and it just have that sense of like, you're starting to learn to rebuild emotional and creative muscle. And that's tough, but it's a slow process. Dwayne's back.
Well, yeah, I think we're probably going to run out of time here, but I'm picturing either Brad, you come up here, Chuck, we'll take you to visit middle of Washington State. You can go walk through all the apple orchards. We'll find you some new ones.
Yeah, you have some good apple orchards up there.
Yeah, the best copies, which always get shipped to like Japan or Nashville. So thank you so much. Thank you, Delilah, for a great interview. If you guys haven't read her stuff, you should check it out, because you can read all different types of stuff. She has a nice range of styles and books out there. And of course, Chuck has got more books than I can even keep track of right now. And but I was trying to send you a note and picture of how the hell this new book yours is going to fit into one binding.
It will. Wanderers did.
Okay.
Wanderers the same length, so somehow they'll manage, I guess.
It's a solid cube.
Yeah, just a wombat poop cube.
Well, you know, you've now reached up in the last couple books the classification I consider what I call authors who produce rat killers.
Bison bludgeoners.
You drop the book, it takes out the rat. You know, it's a handy thing to have around your house. Reminder, folks, we have signed copies of Book of Accents here, and go ahead and order stuff online. If you have any questions, bug us, harass us. Thanks again for all the folks here who took part, and you guys all have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Delilah. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Throw the baby.
Throw the baby.